What's up, friends of the good mood? This is Manni and welcome to a side-by-side comparison of the 2023 flagship gaming laptops. In my opinion, the most attractive ones. To the left, the ROG Strix Scar 18. In the middle, the MSI Titan, aka GT77 HX 13V. And to the right, the Razer Blade 18. All of them virtually the same hardware with the i9-13980HX processor from Intel, or the 950 HX on the Blade 18, but they're pretty much the same, and the GeForce RTX 4090 graphics card in all of these models. Now we're gonna look at the size comparison. We're gonna have benchmarking differences, my best ever achieved results in Firestrike, in Time Spy, in Port Royal, and the 3D Mark benchmarks, also Unigine Haven, and also the Cinebech. So the best results I've been able to achieve. Why am I making this video, by the way? It's not a promotional video. I just have all of those at home right now because I ordered them. I wanted to test them and keep the one I love most and send the others back, okay? So let's start first with the size comparison before we go into the benchmarking results. We're also, by the way, going to have a sound check of the fans, how loud they are and so on. So first, size comparison. As you can see here, flat on the ground and from above, you see the Razer Blade has the smallest of all sizes, and then the MSI is a massive monster, and the Strix Scar 18 is between those two. It's the lightest one. Then comes the Razer, and then of course the MSI. The Razer is more heavy because it's made of a full aluminum metal body basically, whereas the Scar is not. Yeah, also flat. The Razer has the most compact size, and it's really interesting. Also, you see the same size things also with the power adapters. To the right, you see the Razer. It's tiny, small. They all deliver the same 330 watts, I think, and the Razer just makes it like 30% the size of the Titan one in the middle, and the ROG Strix has, well, almost twice the size of the Razer. I wonder how there's such a difference in devices that can pretty much output the same power. But it makes, of course, the Razer the most mobile version. For those who really need a mobile laptop that can be, you know, put up here, put down there, put it here and there, and then these small size of the more compact size of the laptop, as well as the power adapter, a power brick, is really useful. Now, size comparison still, you see, we have a QHD monitor with 16 by 10 on the Strix Scar 18 to the left and the Blade 18 to the right. 240 Hertz, very good panels, extremely good for esport fast games because of almost no response time. They're so fast. The MSI Titan in the middle has a 4K mini LED screen though, with the highest brightness. It's crazy, but it has a higher response delay a little bit. So perfect, super competitive shooters might notice a difference slightly. But I am an FPS shooter, and I must say I didn't really recognize much of a difference there. You can play first-person shooters absolutely perfectly with this one as well. But the 4K, I'm not sure if you really need a 4K screen on a laptop with a 17-inch, because these ones are 18-inch with a 16 by 9. This one is 16 by 10, sorry. This one is 16 by 9 and 17-inch in this case, with 144 Hertz in the center. Okay, also a problem, what you see here on the MSI, you see the power plug-in. It takes a lot more room because it's not an angled plug-in, whereas the Blade as well as the Scar have an angled power adapter to plug in, and therefore require less room to be plugged in. And I wanted to put them closer together, but it didn't work due to the MSI adapter here, unless of course I would have put it to the left side. Now, size comparison, you see it's very nice how they use all of the monitor space, except of course the MSI. It's not a 16 by 10 format, so there is a black not used area here basically, whereas the Blade is like a 90% screen on the entire laptop size. It's insane. I really love it, and the 16 by 10 format looks amazing. Also, you can see build design wise, the MSI, although having a smaller screen technically, doesn't feel like it has a smaller screen, because based off how it's built, it's closer to you. So when you sit in front of the laptop, the MSI has this massive ass coming out there, and it's used for a massively improved cooling system and super powerful. And the laptop screen actually comes up in the front, therefore it's closer to you, and you don't really see that the laptop screens is smaller than the others, in my opinion. But of course, when you stand in front of it like this, you do see the difference. From the back, you see the LED lighting, very impressive on the Scar. The Scar does insanely good LEDs also from the front, and the same also the MSI from the back looks pretty awesome. And the Razer is a little more simplistic, but that's also what makes it kind of attractive in my opinion too. Now, let me show you the highest overclocking and undervolting I was able to do. For those who don't know, an undervolting is what you do on a laptop. Most of my know-how, by the way, I got from Gizmo Slip Tech. Brandon, you are awesome, buddy. I'm leaving the link down in the description. Go ahead, check out Brandon's channel. He's making all those comparisons every day with live streams for 2-3 hours. He's really awesome in this case, and I've learned a lot from him. So check down in the description, pinned comment his channel, please. Go ahead, check it out. Here is the highest overclocking, aka undervolting, I was able to achieve. Undervolting means you don't overclock a laptop CPU because you run into heat problems. What you do, you undervolt it. Therefore, it does the same task, but it doesn't generate as much heat because it runs more efficiently. Therefore, also sometimes heat throttles later or doesn't heat throttle. So you basically just run the same CPU with more efficiency and better performance, and that's what we do. And of course, the graphics card is being overclocked. The 4090 on the Strix Scar, I was able to pull off 200 megahertz clock boost and 1400 megahertz memory boost clock. And undervolting, as you see here, I was only able to make an offset for the P cores because the Strix is, for some reason, it's locked in the BIOS to only undervolt by minus 30 millivolt, and you can only do the P cores, not the E cores, and not the cache, aka ring. It's not possible, and that's really a problem because you'll see the other laptops, although having the same hardware, are going to outperform the Strix in terms of processing power because they are not limited to the undervolting. They can run much more efficiently with the same hardware, and it's really a weird thing. Why did ASUS do this with the Strix Scar? Why not unlock it? There's so much more potential in these processors. But the creator, like Intel, needs to make them yeah, because there's a lottery in the silicon, and some of them are better, some of them are worse, and they have to make a basic setting that works for all. But that means you can usually make them more efficient when you get them. So, only minus 30 undervolt, but a decent overclock on the GPU I was able to pull off. Even though you cannot even do it with XTU. You cannot have a higher undervolting right now. Maybe there's going to be a firmware update, I will hope so. But yeah, let's go to the MSI. I was able to put... This thing already runs better with the GPU. The GPU already runs way overclocked compared to the other models, but I was able to put a plus 240 clock rate on the core clock and plus 1300 megahertz on the memory clock on the GPU. And the undervolting, as you can see here, we have the P cores with minus 120 millivolt and the E cores with minus 120 and the ring or cache with minus 100 millivolt. I also had a setting where I'll show you my highest benchmarking result later. 36,000 something on the Cinebech multi-core, and I had minus 150 on all three. But it did crash in some other situations, so... yeah. And then here the Blade 18, we have a plus 180 core clock and a plus 1200 megahertz memory clock. And here also it's not it's unlocked. You can undervolt it, and I was able to undervolt it by minus 100 on P and E cores and 80 on cache or ring. And that is why the Blade, even though it has a less sophisticated cooling system, it doesn't use thermal liquid metal as a conductor between mainboard and CPU, and yet it outperforms the Strix in most processing-based conditions in my case, because it's undervoltable, and the Scar is almost not undervoltable. Big difference. It's only a setup tweak, but it makes the Scar simply strong. The Blade simply stronger in processor in my case here. So. Also, by the way, liquid metal on both GPU and CPU on the Scar 18. Great choice there, and it's the Cryonaut. It's this super ultra good stuff. MSI is using the traditional thermal pads for some reason. I don't know, they invested so much into the most efficient cooling system we've ever seen on any laptop in the world, and then they saved a few extra bucks on the thermal pads instead of going with liquid metal that saves another 5 to 8 degrees Celsius on each core. I don't understand why they went with this. It just seems so counterproductive to do 99% of the work and then don't go the extra 1% to use liquid metal. I don't understand. But it has the best cooling system and the coolest temperatures, so it runs perfectly without it. So they don't really need it, but they could make it even better, and it's just such a tiny I don't understand. Anyways, and I think the Blade 18 has if they have liquid metal, then it's only on the GPU, I believe, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure about this. So let's go to the Cinebech R23 benchmarks. So you're seeing they're running exactly at the same time. It was not so easy to click exactly at the same time with 3 laptops, but I managed to do it, and you'll see the first finisher was the MSI. And like I said, my highest stats was 36,000. What we're doing here, and I need to say this, let's go back a little here, the Razer Blade, at the time I was recording this video, did not have a firmware that would allow it to run the fans at 100%. You couldn't do it, right? You can, and therefore I chose the setting for all setups, all laptops the same. So therefore we're running the boosted highest powerful modes, but the fans, they are not running at 100% by default. They're just stationary flat on the desk, as you can see here. No lifting in the back. Normally you lift the back of the laptop to make the air intake more free. We didn't do that, and we also didn't run the Scar and the MSI with 100% fans, which we could do, but we didn't do it, so they will get to high RPMs, but it takes some time, and so, yeah. But I chose to do this because the Razer couldn't do it, the 100% at that point, so to have a fair comparison, that's what we're doing. And therefore, without the fully maximum undervolting on the MSI that I was able to do, and without the 100% fans, we get around 33,000 on the MSI, 31,000 with a 30 millivolt undervolting on the Scar, which is a good result, by the way. It's not a bad result. It's a really good result. And even a little more, I think, here on the Blade with 31 something. And that is because the undervolting can be done more. Technically, you have the liquid metal on the Scar, you have the better cooling system on the Scar, and yet the Blade is winning this, I think. Why? Because undervolting. And it's I don't understand how you can unlock or lock something for the users that is 100% pure positive. You get better lifespan for your hardware, it runs more efficiently, uses less energy for the same performance that it generates, it generates less temperature for the whole hardware in the laptop. Why would you lock this? It seems so odd and yeah, useless to me to lock something this positive for the user. Anyways, we're running a 10-minute Dauerrun, it's German now, a 10-minute long stress test, and this is 8 minutes in. So after 8 minutes on the 10-minute long stress test on this Cinebech, we have these temperatures and voltages. You see the CPU package on the Blade went down to 129 watts. So we're not pulling the full 160 or 50 anymore. It's because of thermal throttling, obviously, that's going to happen. All the CPUs will thermal throttle, but they will achieve different performance as they do, depending on their cooling solution, on their conductor that is used, you know, liquid metal or thermal pads, and of course on undervolting and laptop efficiency, or you know, silicon efficiency of the chip. And in this case, you see here we're running on the P core with 4.2 and E cores with 3.4 on the Blade. Okay, 4.2. Remember that it's a stress super long run. Okay, after 8 minutes. Now, the MSI just rocks 4.3 gigahertz altogether, still after such a long time. The average, if we have a look at the average, no, we can't use the average because I didn't reset it before. So we need to look at this, 4.3. And we're pulling, oh, I can't see how much we're pulling because I can't go down as far. But it will be a little more, I think, than the Blade does. And the Scar is only running at 4.1 gigahertz after 8 minutes of running. It's because... well, again, the CPU can't be undervolted as much, and despite the best conditions, better cooling and better, you know, liquid metal, it can't perform as good as the Blade does because undervolting is locked by 30 milliwatts. I really don't understand this. It is such a bummer. This is a decision not to buy the laptop for me personally, because if I want to use a laptop, I want to know that I have the most efficiently running system in there. But it was still, that's the crazy thing. It was pulling a 150 watts on the CPU. But it wasn't getting the highest clock rates. Now, let's have a sound comparison, okay, ladies and gentlemen? Fan noise. I will be quiet, and I will have the same setting. We'll disable the music, and we're gonna have a sound check at the fan noise. The MSI and the Scar, they blast air out the back and the sides, whereas the Blade 18 only blasted out the back, okay? I think most of the volume comes from the other two that we hear here. So, just to summarize this real quick, the Scar is in the center. It's not the loudest, but it also doesn't output as much air. The MSI is louder, but it outputs so much more air than the other two do. It's absolutely insane. You could hear on the camera how the sound of the air coming into the microphone because there's such a massive transfer of air. Therefore, it's louder, but the cooling is so powerful on the MSI. The Scar also outputs way more air than the Blade does, generates more sound as well, but it doesn't quite reach the performance in cooling than the MSI does. But it's also very, very effective and very powerful on the Scar. Absolutely insane cooling power on these both laptops. But the MSI clearly wins this, and the Blade 18 had the quietest experience, simply because there's smaller fans inside. The MSI has 4, the Scar has 3, and the Blade has 3, and the Blade has yeah, it's running quieter because it just can't output as much air, but it somehow still performs really well, and the temps are okay. So yeah, it's quieter for sure. So, Heaven benchmark. I think you say Heaven, right? Is that how you say it? I don't know, Unigine. Let's go for it. I will show you a couple of screenshots. Again, I managed to click exactly at the same time with all 3. You'll see a screenshot in a second. Right now, oops. You see the comparison between MSI and the Blade. In the beginning of the benchmark, so this was thermal throttling may have not been an issue yet, but you already see 69 degrees CPU on the MSI, 83 on the Blade. It is such a difference every time the MSI, no matter what the workload is, it runs with higher clock rates, because look, the Blade runs with 4.4 right now, the MSI with 5.14. It runs with 33 watts, the Blade, and the MSI with 40 watts output on the CPU, or input, and yet the CPU performance is like 15 degrees or 14 lower on the MSI, despite putting out more power. It's crazy. The same you'll find on the GPU, and it's always like this. 10 to 15 degrees less on the Blade on the MSI Titan compared to Blade and Scar. It's absolutely crazy. Here you see the difference between these two. Again, we have 88 degrees on the Scar, and we have 72. That's 16 degrees difference in CPU temperature. Of course, that doesn't have to mean much, because it just means that also the cooling may be more powerful on the MSI, but it also means that ASUS may allow the CPU to simply get more heat. Because you see, it's pulling almost 50 watts, so it's pulling more power than the MSI. Therefore, ASUS may have allowed it to pull a little more power and go more closer to the higher temperatures. It doesn't mean anything negative in this case that its temperature is higher. It just may be a setting chosen by ASUS. What matters, of course, were the benchmarking results. Here are a few screenshots to compare, where I had dark screens and I could see all the comparison. You can see the clock rates on memory. It's weird that the clock rate on the GPU was on 9,000 because I have it highly overclocked. It should be 10,300 or something. Yeah, you see pretty much the same GPU clock rate here on all models. The temperatures on Scar and Blade are exactly the same on GPU. The CPU temperature varies. It's higher actually on the Scar, but again, the output is also higher. The Blade only puts out 4.5 gigahertz right now. The Scar does 5.1, and the MSI pulls 5.6 somehow. Unreal, dude. All right, so let's advance and get into a sound check. Oh yeah, I didn't tell you I was gonna make a sound check with you guys. The sound system, just as an input before, in my opinion, the Scar doesn't have the best sound system, but it has the best bass. It's so much bass, you can really feel it on the desk when you have this thing in front of you. Like, it really feels like you're having like a Bose SoundLink Mini or something. Not quite that powerful, but it really has bass. Or bass, rather, I think you say it in English. And I think that's impressive for a laptop system to have this much bass. You'll be able to hear it when we disable the music here. You'll be able to hear that as well if you put headphones on, I think. And but the mids and highs are not as clear. Listen to this. Okay, so that was a Scar. Now the MSI. It's louder. It's more clear in the mids and highs, and it's louder than the Scar, but there is almost zero bass on the MSI. If you like bass and you like to listen to music with a little bit of bass, the Scar would be better in this situation. But the volume on the Scar, that's something I need to say. Sometimes I wanted to get a little more volume out of the speakers, and by default, though, they were not quite as loud. The MSI is much louder. By the way, I was running the screen on the MSI in QHD mode to have a similar comparison in all ways. But the screen can obviously do 4K with HDR. And the highest brightness you've seen on a laptop, probably, with more than 1,000 nits on HDR, and I think about 600 nits on non-HDR, whereas the Blade does around 500 nits, and the Scar more towards the 400 mark. So the Blade is brighter than the Scar, even though they have technically the same screen, 240 Hz QHD, 16 by 10, but it's brighter, the Blade. And sometimes at very bright conditions, the Scar could feel a little dark for you, but in 99% of all cases, you're not going to feel this problem, I think. I'm gonna go back just to show you that the Blade does have the best sound system. Let's just go back to the MSI. Go forward. Absolutely impressive. The sound coming from the Blade is a dream. You have perfect clear highs, perfect clear mids. You have an okay amount of bass coming from a laptop. It's not quite as high the bass as the Scar has, but the clear, it's so loud and so crisp and clear. By the way, you have no num block on numbers block on the keyboard on the Scar, on the Blade. Sorry, the Scar doesn't have it. The Blade doesn't have it, and the MSI has a mechanical keyboard. That's an absolute dream. It is. I can write so much faster on it. It is so much better. The spacing between the keys and the mechanical keyboard, it's just such a dream on the MSI Titan. Both others don't have it. If you don't want more sound comparison, you can skip a minute or two, then we go to the benchmarks. But if you want to listen to another song, let's stay with this. Let's have some Irish one here, I think. Auld Lang Syne. to learn to play this with the guitar. I love this song. Ah! It doesn't sound bad, but after the Blade... You can hear it's not as crisp as the Blade. We made the mistake of starting with the Blade because now everything else sounds bad. But it does sound clear still on the MSI. It's just in comparison to the Blade not as clear, but it's okay, just the bass. I wish it had more bass on the MSI. And now here with bass. Yeah, you can hear the bass in the guitar. That's so much. How did they put so much bass into a laptop? It's unbelievable. So, here's the highest let's get to the benchmarking part. It's probably the most important thing here at the end. Typically how all the YouTubers do it, right? So they always put the cool stuff at the end. Why do they do this? But yeah, so let's do this. You can always skip ahead, obviously. I also put the segments in the thing, in YouTube video. So this is the highest benchmarking result I was able to achieve in Cinebench with the MSI Titan. You can slightly see the background here that it is the Titan. It's from the Titan screen. But I only have the screenshot now. I didn't make a video from that. 36,000. It is much more powerful, I think, than even the new Ryzen chip. And that Ryzen chip is supposed to be better at the multi-core benchmarking. But I think 36,000, I'm not sure if you can pull this off. It's with an undervolting that I'm going to show you. Also single core. The Ryzen only will do 1,800 or 1,900. And I think in games the Ryzen will probably not quite reach the performance of the i9. But, you know, we still need to see a few more benchmarks. I don't want to speculate too much, but the 36,000 is immensely powerful for this i9 processor, and will be hard to match even for the Ryzen, despite being better in multi-core. And this here is, I think you can't reach it with a Ryzen. So, and that was the offset I had. I had minus 150 on Ring, P and E cores when I did this. But it turned out to be not 100% stable. Later, I had a little bit of a crash somewhere. So I decided to go on 120, 120, and 100 as a long-term thing. And at the end of course, I will tell you also which laptop I am actually getting. So here we are in the benchmarking results in my own 3DMark account. And the fun thing about this account is, oh, I didn't show it, damn it. I cut this out apparently. The fun thing is that I still have benchmarking results all the way down, starting with the 580 Ti graphics card, then the 1690, then came the 1070 from my first laptop, then the 3070 Ti on another laptop, and then came my 2080 Ti here that I have, or it comes in between, on my desktop that I'm using still right now. I'm recording this video from my 2080 Ti desktop. But the idea with why I have such powerful laptops here is I want to buy a laptop that will in the future become my one and all device. I don't want these laptops, this desktop anymore, the desktop over here with the capture card I probably keep. And I don't want these many systems. I just want one system that's more powerful, and that will be my mobile recording studio as well. And that's where the powerful hardware comes in. And yeah, so benchmarking results. The Blade 18 you see on the top with 3 scores: Speedway, Port Royal, and Time Spy. And you can compare it perfectly here on the same screen with the results. You can see it on screen, yeah. With the result on against the Scar 18, because I named those results. And they were done with the undervolting, aka overclocking that you have seen in the beginning of the video. So you see Speedway, we have the Blade 18 5558 with the Scar 18 5859. So Blade putting out a little less power, and that is consistent with all the testing I've done. Although the CPU runs pretty well on the Blade due to the undervolting, overall it just can't output the heat or get rid of the heat as well as the Scar can, because the cooling solution on the Scar is really impressive, especially also due to the liquid metal. So yeah, you'll have a better performance overall with the Scar typically. And it will always be these 3 to 5% that you see here. So Speedway, Port Royal, we have on the Blade 13,829 and 14,207 on the Strix Scar 18. On the Time Spy, we have 20,674 on the Blade, and 21,044 on the Strix Scar. Those were, again, the best achieved results I made with many tests, many testing of different undervolting, different overclockings. Those were the best results I came up with. And now let's compare those results to the MSI Titan. You see 4 results for the Titan here. Fire Strike we can leave away because I didn't do Fire Strike with the others. It's such an old benchmark, it doesn't really matter. But Speedway. And I have to say, actually, with my high undervolting and overclocking, I have achieved so-called legendary scores. The moment I did them, the scores I pulled off were legendary. So they were like literally the highest possible scores you can reach with that given hardware combination. So I had a good lottery on my silicons here, and I had a massively effective clock rates running through those tests and temperatures. So the legendary scores, the others only got good, or no, great or excellent. These were legendary. So in RPGs, they would be orange. Now let's go. Speedway we had... here. Speedway we had 6,000... Wait, I need to go back a little. Not so far. Yeah, Speedway we had 5,558 on the Blade. And we have... Speedway 6,100. That is a big boost, right? And the Speedway on the Strix Scar was 5,859 and 6,100 on the Titan. That is crazy. Port Royal, we have 15,200 pretty much, where the others achieved 13,829 on the Blade and 14,200 on the Scar. And the Time Spy, in my opinion, the most interesting one right here, is 22,400 on the MSI Titan, whereas the others had 20,670 and 21,040. There, the 22,400 is sick. The CPU score on this thing, I'm not sure if I'm going to show it here. Is it here? Can you see it? Yeah, the CPU score was 17,000 in this test. And the GPU ran with 23,730 points. It is absolute nuts. And you see to the right my achievements that I've made with this MSI Titan legendary. And over 9,000 with, it was an old one, but the legendary came with this very test that you see right here on screen. So yeah, this has been a long video, ladies and gentlemen, but for those who may have been interested in achieving or getting the latest new hardware, comparing them between the ones that I personally think are currently the most interesting contenders in the highest end segment with the 1490 and the 13980 or 50, it's pretty much the same CPU. Yeah, the Blade, if I make we say Fazit in German. What do you say in English? Conclusion, yeah. If I make a conclusion here, the Scar 18 is the best bang for the buck between those three because it's so much cheaper. Here in Germany, we pay for it 3,800 euros. No, sorry, 4,800 euros. The MSI comes with 6,500 euros and the Blade with 5,200. There you see the price differences. And 4,800 for this configuration here that we have is pretty powerful on the Scar. It's the best bang for the buck. Of course, still expensive as heck, and also way more expensive, by the way, than compared to buying the prices on the US. The euro is a little stronger than the dollar, so you'd think if it's like $3,200 for the Scar in the US, right? $3,200 with the stronger euro, it should be maybe 2,900 euros. It's 4,800 euros, so it's like what, $5,300 for us? It's crazy. But just to throw in a little bit of a side info that I came across that surprised me, that there's such a difference in price. Interesting comparison there too. So the Scar 18 has the best bang for the buck. Let's go into a nicer view. The best bang for the buck is definitely the Scar, and you get a massive cooling system. You get the best esports screen in the world with 240 Hz and QHD 16:10 format. Super quick response time, unbelievably fast. Same as the Blade. They both have the same display, pretty much. It's just that the brightness on the Blade is slightly higher. But other than that, they're virtually the same. And yeah, they're insanely good for anything anything that's fast. And you can even feel the high refresh rate when you just move windows on the screen and Windows and such. It's really amazing. And I love the 16:10 format. It is just such a difference. You can see it here on screen too. The screen goes all the way to the side. I could put a ruler here on the bottom and it would be the same, but on the top you see there's like a good chunk missing on the MSI. It's the extra space you're losing due to the 16:9 format or 17-inch versus 18-inch. There will, however, I think there is a plan to bring the MSI Titan also with a 240 Hz screen, but I'm not sure if it's going to be a 16:10 format then. Technically, maybe it's possible there is some room left down here if they remove the MSI logo. I don't think they're going to do this. It's probably going to be 17-inch then. But yeah, so the screens are the same and the screen is perfect. The cooling solution is so good in the Scar. And the lighting, the optics is great. It feels good, the laptop is beautiful, and it performs so wonderful. So it's really the best bang for the buck, and probably the best choice for many of you out there. Those of you who want to be more mobile, though, because you see the power adapter is bigger on the Scar compared to the Blade, and also the laptop itself has a higher size. So if you have a smaller backpack, you want to be more mobile, you want to put it up here, check, boom, and work here, and then in the cafe and such. The the Razer Blade, it's the perfect one for moving around a lot, for being very mobile, because it actually has a smaller size. It is also not as, it doesn't have as many crazy colors. So if you're sitting in a cafe, this looks like a normal business laptop pretty much. Whereas this one here looks like a crazy gaming machine. Not sure if you want to look like that in a cafe working on some, I don't know, charts for your work. So of course you could do this. You can also turn off the lighting, of course, it's well possible. But the more mobile and flexible laptop would be the Blade, the Razer Blade, with more expensive, but you also you get a unlocked CPU without any undervolting restrictions. I hope they fix this on the Scar, though. I don't know why they went with it, like I said. Of course, if you want the strongest and the super performer, if you want the boss in performance, that would be the MSI Titan. The screen is a little closer to you, so you don't really see the difference in screen size as much as it looks like here on this picture. You have a 4K screen with HDR, which in most situations you're probably not going to use, because to me personally, you almost can't see a difference in 4K or QHD on such a small monitor, you know? So 144 Hz is a trade-off you're going to make compared to the 240 Hz the others have, whereas in most situations you may also be running QHD. I'm having it set to QHD because 4K, why make my hardware do unnecessary heat consumption and performance loss in 4K that I cannot even, I virtually cannot see the difference between QHD and 4K on that small screen. It's good when I put it on the big LG TV, but in my living room, but not so much here. But it's the highest brightness and the mini LED that really convinces you to buy this one. It's so bright. When I was laying on in my dark bedroom and I had it on me on a little table, it's so bright I was literally blinded by it. It's insane, the brightness, man. It's crazy. So, but of course it's the most expensive, but also the best cooling solution and the best performer. It just has the highest performance period of all those laptops here. Also, maybe just two last words about the cameras, because they might be relevant. The Razer Blade has a 5-megapixel 1080p webcam built in, and Windows Hello, so that means you look at the screen and it unlocks for you. Very nice. Good camera quality. It's not the best quality I've seen. In fact, my 8 or 9 years old Logitech C920 camera, the first webcam I ever bought, you guys back in the days with Patreon helped me to buy this when I was starting with the channel. That old geezer is still outputting way better pictures than any of the Razer Blade. It's so much sharper, so much more detailed, more like a lens that actually focuses and so on, despite being such an old webcam, right? And I don't know why these are flagships of 5,000 euros and more. Why in the world won't you put a 30-euro webcam in there that actually does a good job? Why would you put a $3 crap thing in that we had in phones, the first phones that ever came out? I mean, seriously, it doesn't make any sense to me why the webcams always suck this bad. This is the high-end luxury segment. you shouldn't have to worry about anything that's bad. Something that's bad should not be possible in these segments here. So yeah, I really don't understand. The worst thing is the MSI. It has the most awful webcam you can imagine. It's so horrible. You couldn't even make a video call with it, in my opinion. You can, but it looks really awful. I'll put some pictures in comparison for you here, where I did this with the screens. And then the ROG Strix, it is an okay picture. It's not as good as the Razer, and of course further away from an actual webcam. But at least it's good enough to make a video call with somebody, in my opinion. And you could also game with it and record with Open Broadcaster software, which is actually here installed. You could put your camera in the top right corner, and you can play the game, and you can have actually a gameplay video. You can be seen good enough for a gameplay video, and even better on the Razer. But again, if you really are a content creator, you're probably going to plug in your iPhone or some other phone you have and use an app to really have a high quality imagery coming from it, or you'll have a dedicated webcam you can put on top of it. And if you do that, then it doesn't matter that the MSI doesn't have a good camera, because you're going to use the other camera anyways. There's a shutter. You can actually physically close the camera on the MSI, something I think all laptops and everything should have in the name of privacy protection. Yeah, you can be sure that nobody can access that camera, because there's literally a physical blocker in front of it. And that is really well done. But the camera is an absolute garbage on the MSI, and I'm really, really wishing they hadn't done that. But that keyboard, however, is the god on this one. I mean, it's so good. All right, that is a long video. Take a look at the screenshots for the webcam comparison, and thank you all for watching. Tell me what you think about this video, because typically I don't do hardware comparisons, but if you want me to do more of these, I could actually try and incorporate this a little bit on the channel. Like I said, this is going to be my plan to make these. I'm probably going to go with the MSI. It's probably what I'm going to keep. I'm going to probably send the others back. The reason being, I am a mobile gaming content creator, and my gaming content I create needs to be in the 16:9 format anyways. And although I love the screens more from the other two models, I like the 16:10 so much. I like the 240 Hz refresh rate. I wish the Scar would be a little brighter, but it's not a biggie. The response time is so perfect. But since I need to produce in 16:9 for my mobile game viewers, and most screens still have that, so that's the production format for a YouTuber currently still. Maybe it will change in the future, but right now it is, and therefore for me it will probably be the MSI. Also because it's such a powerful beast with so much room with the temperatures. Like, it's always running so cool and relaxed. It does make a difference for me. Also the keyboard, I'm working so much on the keyboard, I'm typing so much with it, and I can be so much faster and more effective with this insane keyboard. You don't believe what actually difference that makes, this insane cool mechanical keyboard here. So it's gonna be this one for me. But I can definitely recommend any of the three. The best bang for the buck, the Scar, the most mobile version for people who go around and use the laptop everywhere they go. The Blade is great. They all perform insanely well with their hardware. They have such high power. You can play any game at 4K. Literally any game, even without running DLSS3 with and frame generation, which of course the new graphics cards have. All things I learned from Brandon from Gizmo Slip Tech. Again, my shout out here. Go ahead, check him out. Thanks for watching. Tell me what you think about this video, and I'm gonna leave you with a hopefully good day now, and without having to listen to my annoying voice anymore. See you around. Bye bye.